My name's Dario Nandapi. I'm a vet I've worked in the dairy industry in WA now since the mid-90s as a vet and also sort of a nutritionist. So been dealing with hay and silage since then, doing feed budgets and trying to put hay and silage into rations. A lot of the mistakes I've come across in my days as nutritionists is farmers not knowing actually how much they're feeding. So two really important things are the weights of bales or the weights of what you're feeding and what the dry matter is, especially in silage, as the dry matter can vary quite a bit, and that means we can be severely under or overfeeding our animals if we don't know what it is. The target dry matter for our hay and silage is for our pit silage. We don't want to be any wetter than 30% dry matter because we get a lot of effluent loss, and effluent's got all the sugars in it that we want our animals to eat, and that sugar is just basically wasted. Plus it goes into, if it goes down to streams, it causes a very high pollutant. So the minimum is 30%, and for pit silage our range is 30 to 40% dry matter. We don't want it any drier than that, because any drier than that it's very hard to compact, and we want to be able to compact our silage to get rid of the air, because air is the enemy. So we want to compact that silage, concentrate the sugars so we can get good lactic acid formation. So pit silage is 30-40%. In our round bale silage, our target dry matters are 40 to 50%. If we're too wet, again, we're going to get that effluent loss and our bales are going to sag. And if it's too dry, it's going to be hard to compact and get the air out. And if we've got a lot of air in there, we're not going to get a good silage product. And we're going to get a lot of fungi sort of attack in there that's not good for animals either. So 30 to 40% for our round bale silage. And then up at our hays, we want it to be at least 85% dry matter. If we're below 80% dry matter in our hays, we can get the worst case scenarios, we actually get hay fires. But even if we don't get hay fires, we get a lot of mould growth. So definitely 85%. Don't want to go any drier than 90%, because the drier it is, it's been sitting on the ground longer, which means it's losing energy while it's sitting on the ground, but also we get a lot more leaf shatter and we get a lot more losses that way. So 85 to 90% for our hays is our target dry matter. So dry matter is crucial for making silage and hay, as we've just mentioned. So there are ways you can measure it. A lot of machines have moisture meters that can help, as long as they're accurate. But another way you can do it is with the microwave technique. Is you make sure you get a representative sample of the windrow before you start harvesting it, and mix it up, and then do a microwave test, as we've got another example of how to do a microwave test. A slower way is an oven overnight, but you generally haven't got overnight to wait. So microwave's good. It only takes 4 or 5 minutes to get a dry matter, and then you'll know whether the crop is ready to harvest or not. It's important to aim for high quality forages, because our animals perform a hell of a lot better with high quality forages. And also, if we're looking at the costs, we're looking at megajoules rather than just dry matter. So quality is really important. Quality is king, and we get so much better for the animals. Long term, less methane produced if we're feeding high quality forages, and the animals perform better. Even if you add grain to our hays, if our hays are better quality, the animals are still going to perform better. So basically, quality is king, and on a cost basis, we're really harvesting we want to look at harvesting megajoules, not just dry matter. So when we talk about energy in our feeds is measured in megajoules. So megajoule is just a unit of energy. So the higher the megajoules, the higher the energy in our hay, silage or grain or whatever we're buying. And yeah, generally the higher the megajoules, the higher the quality. So when we're making a silage or hay crop, if we want to target for our silages, I like to see silages above 10 megajoules of energy per kilo of dry matter. And for our hays, because they're generally cut a bit later, anything above 9 is a good target to have. Definitely the higher the better, but they're sort of minimum targets I like to have in place. And NDF, or the neutral detergent fibre, is how much fibre is in that crop. So generally for grass type crops in silage, we don't like that NDF to be above 50%. If it's a legume based crop, because that has lower NDF levels, for a legume crop we like it to be anywhere below 40%. And protein depends on what the crops are. So generally for pasture silage, 12 to 13% protein's good. If it's high in legumes, you'd probably want it above 16. And if it's something like oat and hay, you're generally not going to get much above 8%. So it depends on the crop really on what the protein levels are. So there's a compromise between high energy crops and quantity, and definitely in our cereals, the earlier you cut them, the higher quality they'll be, the lower NDF, the more megajoules, but the less yield you get. But the good thing is with our pastures, and there's good examples of this, that if we cut early for high quality, we get the megajoules and high quality silage, but because we cut early, we get the regrowth. The overall yield is actually better, as well as getting high quality silage by cutting early and short. We get the regrowth, which again is high quality quality, and end up the yield is much better. And if you look at megajoules harvested per hectare, that's much better than having a late cut crop. That the quality is not going to be as good, and we don't get as much of a yield either because we don't get the regrowth. So in pasture we can get both quality and quantity, but our cereal crops, it's a compromise between one or the other. So the key factors influencing energy in our crops is basically what the mother crop is. Once we cut the crop, it doesn't get any better. So just wrapping it in silage or making hay of it's not going to make it any better. So the key to having really high quality silage and hay is to have a really good, what I call mother crop, and the main influence on that is the maturity. In our grasses, once a plant starts going to head, it starts putting more NDF into the plant to hold the seed head up, and the quality drops. So what the main influence is the pasture variety. We want a late maturing variety, and we want to cut it early before too much of it's gone to head, and then we should get a pretty good high energy levels in our silage crops. So when would you cut? We can cut really early when it's all vegetative, and that'll be really high quality, but the yield might be down. So we sort of think for the best compromise between quality and yield is when your grass is at 10% seed emergence, that's what we say is the best compromise. You're still going to get a good quality crop with enough yield to warrant running machines over those paddocks. So 10% emergence is what we target for our grass crops. So the height we want to cut it at, we want to cut it at about 7 centimetres above ground. And the reason we cut it at 7 centimetres is we get less soil contamination, because the soil's got a lot of nasty bugs that interfere with the ensiling process that form bad sort of products in ensiling. So at 7 centimetres we're going to reduce the amount of soil contamination we get. It's going to be better for your machinery, you're not going to blunt your knives as much. Also down low at 7 centimetres is all stem, so the quality's not as great. So by cutting higher we're going to get a better quality crop. And also at 7 centimetres we let a bit of air to get underneath the crop and hold the crop off the ground, so it can actually dry a bit faster as well. And then if we are targeting regrowth, by leaving that stem of 7 centimetres, we've got a bit of sugar reserve in there, and that plant can really bounce back quick and give us good yields coming out of that for regrowth as well by cutting at that height. So when we cut any crop, wilting or drying is crucial, and the quicker we can dry it, the better, because when the crop's sitting on the ground, we've got enzymes, we've got bacteria on the outside, and the plant continues to respire, and these all take energy. So the quicker we can dry that crop, the less energy we lose before we bale that crop. So wilting is crucial. We want to do it really quick. For pit silage, we can do it within a day. For round bale silage, within 2, and hay, ideally within 3 or 4. So wilting is crucial. So a few things that can help us wilt quicker. A mower conditioner definitely speeds up the drying rate by 30 to 40%. It damages the cuticle of the plant, so the plant can lose more water. Another key is tethering. Tethering fluffs the crop up and spreads it evenly over the ground, and if we can do that following the mower, the plant's stomata are open, and that's where the plant loses most of its water. So we want to tether straight behind the mower if we can, and that can increase wilting speed by 30 to 60%, and can increase the energy in your plant, in your silage crop, by 0.6 megajoules. So it makes a significant difference. And the other thing we can do if we haven't got that is leave our windrows as wide as we can, because sunlight is the best for drying crop. Not so much wind, but sunlight's the best. So the further we can scatter that crop on the ground and get more sun into it, the quicker it's going to dry. The quicker we can dry it, the less field losses we get, the better quality crop's going to be. If unfortunately the weather forecasters get it wrong and we get some rain on it, the best thing to do before it rains is windrow it into a tight windrow again, so rain won't fall on as much of it as possible. And then once the rain's gone, if you can tether it back out again to dry it as quickly as you can. And generally we're talking more than 5 mils of rain is pretty harmful. Less than 5 is not quite so bad, but that's what you can do if the weather forecast is wrong. But ideally don't make it while it's raining if you can help it. So if you're going to wrap silage bales, we like to talk about having at least 4 layers of plastic over every part of the bale. We like it to have 50% overlap and about a 50 to 60% stretch on the plastic. So that's the ideal. We basically want to get 4 microns of plastic between the outside and the silage wrap roll if we can, to stop air. Basically we don't want air getting in there. So another loss with hay and silage is at feed out time. So there are a few things you can do to limit that loss. One is the better the quality of the silage or the hay, the less the animals tend to waste. So quality again is king, so higher quality, the animals don't tend to waste as much. If you can, chop length. If it's long, animals are going to sort through looking for the leaf and throw the stem out. So if you can chop it, chopping is going to decrease your wastage. And other things is a bit of infrastructure to reduce wastage. If you just feed it on the ground, you've got the greatest potential for loss. So if we can feed it in troughs or hay feeders, that can reduce your wastage dramatically. Don't overfeed your animals. If you put too much feed out there, they're going to toss it and throw it around and probably waste a lot of it on the ground. So don't overfeed. That's another way of reducing your losses. But basically, the more money you spend on infrastructure, the less wastage you're going to have. Another great loss is storage, especially is in hay. Storing hay outside has got the greatest potential for loss because of weathering effects. So if you do happen to store it outside, store it in a north-south direction so sunlight will hit every part of the bale. Store them about 50 to a metre apart in long, big sausages, north-south. If you can cover it to stop rain and sunlight hitting it, that can help reduce your losses as well. But the best place for your hay is in a shed if you can, and even on pallets off the ground, because we do get a lot of wastage in the wicking effect from the soil bale interface. So off the ground, if you haven't got a concrete base, even on wooden pallets, can help reduce the loss that way as well, but ideally in a shed if possible. And remember, our round bale silage, the plastic really only lasts for a year. So if you want to store it for longer, you're probably best to bury it under sand or soil. And then if you stop air getting in it, that silage will last for as long as you can keep the air out. So to summarise, I'd say the key thing, especially in silage, is just getting the dry matter right. Buffering capacity of the crop, the water-soluble carbohydrate level in the crop, you've got a little say on, but you've got a big say on getting the dry matter right. So for hay and silage, if one thing I would say is get your dry matter right when you're going to put it in a pit, in a bale, either hay or silage, because there's big losses if we go too wet or too dry. So get that right and you'll get a good silage product or a good hay product. Another good resource with all the information, especially for silage making, is in this Successful Silage book brought out by Top Fodder. See your local NRM rep, they might have a copy, but otherwise it is downloadable off the internet. Probably Dairy Australia site I think has got it, but if you search Top Fodder, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. A great resource with all the best practice for making quality silage.